Welcome back to Krusty Car News, and have we ever got a really busy week for you all lined up today? GM, Honda, Ford, you name it, everybody's impacted. But let's take it from the top. We have 5 amazing storylines we're going to talk to you about today. Buyers are absolutely clueless when buying these new vehicles. A whole new phenomenon means you might be buying a worn out brand new vehicle. Second story, breaking. The car and truck market is collapsing before our very eyes. The third story, believe it or not, if you've looked around, car dealers are starting to dump their vehicles. They can't afford to hold on to them any longer. The fourth story, Honda, how did their sales drop so hard recently? You're going to want to find out. And the fifth story, GM's shocking news absolutely rattles the car industry. Be sure to sit back, grab your snack, relax, and watch the video. You're going to learn a whole new pile of exciting new car news. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. So the first story is absolutely a new phenomenon that we're seeing in car industry today.
Well, many vehicles like this are clearly right off the boat and the truck. We have obviously all the shipping materials. We still have the tags and information on here as well. The fact remains is a lot of vehicles, like a lot of these along this row, have been sitting here for a significant amount of time.
With cars sitting and inventory growing, sitting on lots for 30, 60, 90 days, in some cases, 365, 720 days, we're seeing cars sitting brand new on the lot that might even be 2 or 3 years old already because they haven't been selling.
But we also know vehicles like the Nissans that we're looking at here, we're seeing lineups and lineups of brand new SUVs by Nissan. They're not selling very well either. Vehicles that might already be a year or 2 years old are still not selling, and the OEMs are really pushing these vendors to sell those new old stock Nissan products. And then based on Cox Automotive, the average time that the cars are sitting on the lot for a Ford is about 100 days. There's about 100 days supply before all of the inventory runs out. And manufacturers, for example, like Alfa Romeo, Jaguar, and of course the Stellantis products, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, are some of the poorest selling vehicles. And as a result, a lot of these vehicles are sitting on the lot. As a matter of fact, when the industry average day supply is around 76, a lot of these vehicles by Stellantis are often averaging 150, 160 day supply. And believe it or not, there's about 2 years to 3-year-old vehicles on these lots already. That's right, there's 22s, 23s galore on a lot of these car lots, and that means they've been sitting a long time.
Sadly, many people are buying their brand new dream vehicle, finding out that the battery is already 3 years old, the tires are flat spotted, and the paint has been faded, and it doesn't match up properly. This is absolutely going on in the industry today because vehicles are sitting way too long.
Well, lot rot's a real thing. Have you ever heard of that? That's where if the vehicle sits for so long, it actually starts breaking down, wearing down. Does it also impact the factory warranty? It doesn't matter what manufacturer, car, truck, SUV, they all carry the same factor. They've got things that deteriorate, whether it's the paint that shines. Of course, you get birds crapping on them, and that naturally does stain paint. Paint as well, subjected to heavy sunlight, does start to deterioration on that. Plastic starts to wear. When you look on the sidewall of the tires, these tires are not good forever, at least not safely. A lot of people will run them till there's nothing left. But just because you have lots of tread on the tire doesn't mean that tire's good. If that vehicle gets to a point where it's about 9 or 10 years old, it starts to develop little fissures and cracks and divots, and it starts to become slightly unstable. And a cracking tire after about 10 years just becomes literally unsafe. And especially when people are buying SUVs, pickup trucks like this, they're towing weight. That puts a lot of burden, a little extra strain on the tire suspension, and it becomes a literal safety hazard. So you want to make sure those tires are in good shape. You look down here and there's a date code here, 0622. 06 is the week of the year. So there's 52 weeks in the year. This is the 6th week. So that's February 15th or thereabouts. But 2022 is the year. So this was made in 22, early of 22. This tire already is about 3 years old. Look, it's already been patched and plugged here too, as you can tell. So sometimes, in this case, this vehicle is just slightly used, but even new vehicles, new tires are often subject to wear and tear, cracking, fissures. After 10 years, they're not very good. I would definitely recommend throwing them out. The worst part is you get into hybrid vehicles, they have bigger batteries, or electric vehicles, they have even bigger batteries yet. And if you don't continually charge them, they will deteriorate. They have a limited shelf life. So if you have a vehicle that hasn't been moved or even started, if you're talking even a standard internal combustion engine vehicle with a standard garden variety glass mat battery or some other high dollar, high capacity capacity battery, that battery could start wearing out. And as it wears out, then you might be facing a significant amount of dollars. That's a significant challenge because a lot of these vehicles with all their advanced technology usually means that there's always a sap, a draw on the system. Doesn't matter. It's not even a faulty system. Another big consideration, as they sit, especially in a lot of back lots, you get a lot of rodents. And it's not uncommon to get rodent infestation into some of these vehicles. A lot of modern day vehicles are using soy insulated wiring. The more likeliness of rodents and other animals getting into the vehicles, into the wiring harnesses, and causing big problems. So it's not that buying a 3-year-old truck that's new old stock with 0 miles on it isn't a bad idea. You can get yourself an amazing deal. But just know this, as the longer the vehicle has been sitting on the lot, a lot of customers don't even realize that they might, in a 2 or 3 years later, actually have to change batteries, possibly look at doing tires in a few years, even if they're not worn out. It ages like the rest of us. We age like fine wine. But a lot of these vehicles do age, and it does end up costing the buyer a little bit more money.
And if you happen to be buying a brand new vehicle and it has a couple of years under its belt, make sure it reflects in the price, because you're going to change tires, you're going to change batteries, and the overall vehicle is deteriorating every single year. Don't forget to get your price to reflect the deterioration rate of that vehicle. The second story, breaking news. The car market is absolutely catastrophically failing before our very eyes. Major headlines like, Stellantis to lay off 400 workers in the Detroit plant. What's Nissan's game plan to stay in the game after 9,000 workers get laid off and the CEO takes a major pay cut? The Toledo Jeep plant is preparing for 1,000 layoffs. Volkswagen targets layoffs and a 10% pay cut amidst the German plant shutdowns. And it doesn't just end with the car manufacturers, but even the suppliers providing parts for a lot of these manufacturers, like thousands of jobs getting turfed at Schaeffler, which is a car manufacturing supplier for a lot of the German brands. Northvolt announces 1,600 layoffs in Sweden, and Webasto is about to lay off 218 workers in Detroit. We're seeing quality control issues everywhere. Car manufacturers like Toyota were struggling with a lot of recalls, engine failures. 2022, 2023 model years absolutely collapsing. And the latest word by Honda, they've expanded the recall list for that 3.5 liter catastrophic engine failure that they've been experiencing. With high interest rates, of course, we're starting to see inventory grow and dealers are getting absolutely desperate. Quality of the vehicles is going down, but the prices continue to climb. And even with the feds recently dropping the interest rates, buyers often said, as soon as interest rates drop, I'm buying a new car. Well, guess what? The rates are dropping and people aren't buying new cars. Just look online and you'll see Rams, brand new Rams across the nation, as many as 39,250 units available across the nation that are brand new to choose from. Clearly, nobody's buying these vehicles. And of those Rams not selling, about 383 of those units across the nation are at least 2 years of age or older, but they're still brand new.
Now, the worry of Stellantis is that all these new models may not actually sell. And if they don't sell, what that means is more discounts, more cuts, more slices, and more incentives. More incentives means slicing off the bottom line, and as well, stock prices further to hinder. And models like this beautiful little black Durango carrying the Hemi engine.
Of course, Dodge only has the Challenger Charger, the Durango, as well as the Hornet. But the Hornet has absolutely brutal sales. Brand new across the nation, there's as many as 1,275. That's right, they're not selling, nobody wants them, they're overpriced.
And there's 550 days supply on these little Hornets. So you have choices of white, you can get into a beautiful blue vehicle. How about the grays? All kinds of greatness here. You're not fooling a lot of people, because a lot of people know this is the Alfa Romeo Tonale dressed in a reskin. And of course, a lot of people recognize or appreciate or associate the lower quality and the issues with reliability to vehicles like Alfa Romeo. Whether they're problematic or not, there's a bit of a reputation. And now the Dodge Hornet, which is essentially the same vehicle, is carrying that same burden of unreliability. Whether it's bad or not, time will tell, because it's a newer model, but that certainly doesn't help its cause.
And you know things are getting really rough. When car brands, we know that Toyota was delivering on demand. You'd walk in, you'd throw your money on the table, and they tell you have to wait for 3 months, 6 months, 8, 12 months. For hybrids, sometimes in some cases like the Primes, you had to wait 1.5 to 2 years to get some of those vehicles. That was merely 2 years ago. Boy, have things changed. Another huge issue that a lot of people aren't talking about are used cars. Now, a lot of late model used cars are going for premium dollars, and they have been the last couple of years due to the shortages. But now a lot of those quality late model used cars are simply not selling either. I've been walking car lots recently, looking at what sort of inventory is laying around, and a lot of these popular late model vehicles, I'm looking at Broncos, I see many Toyotas, Hondas, and vehicles that were almost impossible to find are starting to build up on these used car lots. Nobody's buying them. Number one, because they can't afford it, and these high prices have driven these prices, or the strong demand and low availability about 2 years ago made them hard to come by. But now what we're finding is it's switched cold turkey. We've gone totally the other way, where a lot of these vehicles are still at a premium. These dealers and vendors are still trying to unload them for what they believe is fair market value, but nobody's buying them because interest rates are still relatively high, and that's the flip of the coin. See, back in 2022, as we rolled into the tail end of 22, we saw less and less people borrowing money, taking finance, taking leases on a lot of these vehicles. And in doing so, now what you're going to find is the trickle effect. We're finding less inventory, and the ones that we do find are charged extraordinarily high. More people are electing just to continue fixing the old junk that they had, less lease returns coming back to market. Yes, there's been a market decrease in that. We're seeing a lot less people back in 22 as we rolled into 23 taking out leases because of the high interest rates. People were reluctant. Again, fixing what they had, deferring. The transition as well to buying smaller cars seemed to be taking place. The sales of full-size SUVs, mid-size SUVs, luxury vehicles are starting to drop.
Cars, SUVs, not selling all that well unless they provide extreme value, which a lot of these high prices now no longer show the value that they once did. Because a few short years ago, people saw value in buying a full-size diesel pickup truck like this that would literally go for 50 or 60 grand. And now we have a Cummins diesel 3500 HD. It's an absolute gorgeous truck. But, you know, sure, it's got sunroof, it's got leather interior, but when we look on this, is a Laramie Crew Night 4x4, and it's got the diesel, and it's $114,000. Prices are getting out of hand.
So what a lot of people are doing now, instead of buying these brand new vehicles, is continually fix their old vehicles, put a new set of tires, a new set of brakes, and extend the life. Maybe you can get another 2 or 3 years out of that vehicle until you absolutely need to buy a vehicle. Then only you may actually be witness to lower interest rates and maybe more desperate dealers that have absolutely reduced the MSRP pricing on their new vehicles. The third story, absolutely, car dealers are getting desperate. They're cold calling you. They're getting on the phone. They're bothering you. They're chasing you through the car lots. They're just trying to unload their vehicles. When they don't sell, clearly you're looking at major incentives. Now we're hearing about incentives, and a lot of these dealers and these manufacturers are offering, $2,500 off, 1.9% on financing, all these things. But really, when it push come to shove, are these actually decent deals? Hyundai Ioniq 5, they're offering up to $10,000 off of MSRP. Some big aggressive discounts. They're saying first there's a $7,500 retail bonus cash. There's also potentially current Hyundai financial customers can score another $1,500 year-end upgrade offer. So if you're a loyalist, they might give you a little extra money off that. Finally, EVs in stock for over 180 days are eligible for another $1,000 aged inventory. How about the Lincoln Navigator discounts? Up to $12,000. We know Lincoln, one of the poorest sellers, big Ford products. It's a land yacht. The sales of full-size SUVs are diminishing, and the sales of the smaller subcompact vehicles that are in that $20,000 to $30,000 range is going up. So you're getting this tidal shift from high-priced vehicles down to lower-priced vehicles. That's why this big behemoth is not selling. So 12 grand off, they're offering for 24 Lincoln Navigators. First of all, they're saying this stately luxury SUV has about a $10,000 rebate. Additionally, luxury vehicle owners may qualify for an additional $2,000 Conquest cash incentive. Ford Expedition, that's another land yacht. That's basically the same vehicle. $5,000 off. It's a Ford, so it's a slightly smaller MSRP. So naturally the percentage is similar, but of course it's less money off. Probably a little bit more popular, and that's why incentives of $5,000. So at 5 grand off, to me, is insulting. You've got a vehicle that's 100K. Oh, here we'll give you $5,000 at 5%. I mean, once I hit 55, I qualify for the retirement package. I can walk into a restaurant and ask for the old timers discounts when I buy my bacon and eggs, And this is all that is. It's like you could walk in there pretty much say, yeah, give me 5% off. Things are getting desperate. Things are getting rough. With growing inventory across the industry, you've seen lineups of brand new vehicles that these dealers just can't unload. Know that we're hitting the year end. They've got to try to make their targets. They're trying to get these incentives out so buyers feel the urgency to buy. But, you know, there's two ways to look at this. You buy the outgoing of 24s and you're buying something that's already kind of a year old. But then the flip side is you buy a 25 and a lot of these model changes are coming. The Ram products, we're seeing a lot of those vehicles now have that Turbo 6. So there's some unknowns. As you get into the new generational models, sometimes you have new challenges with, you know, durability and reliability. Dodge Durango, they're actually saying for 25s, so this is different, right? The Dodge Durangos are actually pumping this up, promoting a 25 Dodge Durangos are eligible for a Power Dollars bonus cash incentive. And interestingly, they're looking at the SRT Hellcats aren't excluded. That tells you one thing, that they're not selling, including their Hellcats and SRTs and everything else. So it's not just their base models and their base trim with the plastic, you know, with the Fisher-Price interiors. It's all of the more premium versions, and they're including all of that. Now they're saying a whopping $7,100 in savings off of sticker. The V8 Durangos are eligible for a $4,000 national engine bonus cash. Is that because you're going to need $4,000 to rebuild that engine in a couple of years? I'm just saying. And the Mercedes EQ series. So the EQS is highly incentivized, but they're offering a $15,000 sticker, a discount on that, so off of MSRP. But realize, I've showed you examples of after a year of ownership and maybe 3 or 4 or 5,000 miles, a lot of owners are finding them losing 40 to 50% of the original value in a year. So unless you're gonna plan to keep this around for a while, I don't know, take a good look at it and see if it fits the bill. But it's a pricey car. It's the time that if you don't like one of these deals, just know that any of these manufacturers are going to be a little hungrier, but don't be caught up buying something you're not ready to buy. Make sure the interest rates are right, the car is quality, there's no issues with it, and definitely they're gonna price these vehicles accordingly. Fourth story, what's going on with Honda? They're seeing global sales drop as much as 15%. As well as we're seeing US regulators dive in. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration is calling 1.4 million Hondas for bad engines. Sales, yes, have gone down by 15% globally, and a big part of that has to do with the Chinese sales that have literally almost but dried up. While American sales and Japanese sales have crept up relatively moderately. Overall, walking down car lots here where I've checked local dealers, we're seeing inventory growing at an absolute alarming rate. I've never seen this types of inventory since pre-2020. Yes, the inventory is growing. We're seeing the quality challenges happening. There's all kinds of new recalls. And with the fact that a lot of these vehicles now don't feel like they were built like they were 20 years ago, it begs the question, why are the sales dropping so aggressively? Could it be the quality control? Could it be the reliability, or could it just be the simple price adjustments that have gone through the roof? Honda's sliding many ranks, many slots down, and a big part of that has to do with overall reliability. Their continuously variable transmission has caused a lot of challenges as well, and consumer sentiment of overall confidence in buying the brand that it's going to provide trouble-free motoring seems to be going away. Now, unfortunately, the US regulators are at it again. Where initially there was a much smaller number, 250,000 units recalled for Honda to have bad 3.5-liter V6 engines. That's right, there was a problem in the machining down at the bottom of the engine, the crankshaft, and of course the rod bearings, which is the interface between the connecting rod and the crankshaft. There was a machining issue which developed very early, created catastrophic engine failures. There's been many complaints, many recalls, and certainly many trips to the dealer with many consumers wondering, why do I have a problem with my Honda? I thought they were reliable vehicles. Yes, that 3.5 liter V6 engine, now the recall has been expanded to 1.4 million vehicles. And all those vehicles that you might actually find those engines are Honda Odyssey, of course you've got the Pilot, the Honda Ridgeline, Acura MDX, and the TLX. So quite evidently impacts a whole host of different vehicles. And while consumers often went to brands like Toyota, Lexus, as well as Honda for the confidence that they developed, a quality car that was highly reliable, The problem is lately what we're seeing in all of these vehicles, not just Honda, but Toyota and Acura and Lexus, is that some of that reliability seems to be going by the wayside. A lot of it seems to be these brands looking for opportunities to save more revenue, to cut corners, if it will, in my own personal opinion. In my personal observation, it feels like the vehicles, doesn't matter what brand, feel like they have much more cost-cutting measurements applied to the construction of a lot of these new vehicles. It's a sad state of affairs. But here, where revenue is constantly the go-to, where every manufacturer is looking for opportunities to save money, cost-cutting measurements seem to be in place. And on that note, if you're buying a Honda, make sure it has an automatic transmission, maybe a manual gearbox, and try to avoid that 1.5 turbo or maybe even a 3.5 liter V6 until things get settled out. With increasing levels of recalls and quality issues means that the consumer like you and I are left holding the bag. The fifth story, GM's big announcement absolutely rattles the car industry. We're seeing inventory levels rising again just to fill up the car lots. And while successes have been shown that GM's sold more trucks, they're leading the top sales for small pickup trucks, with the GMCs as well as the Chevys now outpacing Ford for top sales. And GM's also having much success with the sales of a lot of their electrified vehicles. From the surface, many would assume that everything is good in the GMC household. But that's not entirely true, because when you start peeling back layers of the onion, you'll start finding many different hidden little gems. We're seeing iconic cars being discontinued, laid off General Motors workers being thrown to the curb like trash. General Motors employees prepare for a temporary phased layoff at the Fairfax plant. And back in September, General Motors was preparing to lay off 1,700 workers. But if business is so great, then why are they laying off all of these workers? The most affordable models sold by Cadillac, the XT4, are being discontinued. And General Motors has just announced 500,000 vehicles are recalled due to bad, faulty transmissions. And now the latest news is General Motors has announced that they're hatcheting 1,000 jobs from their global workforce. Yes, while GM sales continue to climb, they're selling more EVs, they're selling more internal combustion vehicles, and they're outselling the Fords, they're outselling Stellantis products. But there's something going on in the background. Yes, we're seeing increasing levels of recalls, we're seeing quality challenges, and on top of it, they're having to lay thousands of workers off. And knowing, of course, during the chip shortage, it was hard to ration chips, and a lot of these manufacturers realized that, why don't we just put those in the higher profit margin vehicles, sell those for a higher dollar amount, and we don't need to sell as many vehicles as we once did. Well, that business model clearly took over, and GMC, Chevy have clearly adopted that going forward, reducing the amount of affordable vehicles in their arsenal and investing in full-size trucks, large SUVs, electric vehicles. All of these vehicles now are targeted at buyers with a much bigger bank account.
And here's another one, a very basic spec in a Yukon. As you'll notice, it has some nice detail on the front end, but it does have more of the highway rubber in here. A very basic spec here. Running boards, very simple. Color keyed, at least on the handles. Lots of room here for the family and friends, and you can tow a lot of weight around here. So this is a very popular truck, and more people seem to be buying these, but that's because they have to. There's no options. This is all that Chevy's offering are SUVs and pickup trucks. As we look around here, let's take a quick look at the sticker. How much is this vehicle retailing for? Well, let's take a look. We have a 24 Tahoe 1FL, four-wheel drive, beautiful little rig, very simple spec. Yeah, it's just fabric seats in there, pretty simple vehicle, but they're looking for $73,800.
And we give you one great example of the General Motors. We're thinking about this back in 2018. The Chevy Sonic was a little car, very cost-effective, small subcompact vehicle that a lot of people just enjoyed to get around for daily commuter. And that vehicle literally went for a base MSRP of $15,295 in LS trim. But the SUV version of that vehicle, also in 2018, was the Chevy Trax, stickering for a starting price of $21,000 in LS trim. Clearly you're seeing the differential. The chassis is the same, the drivetrain's the same, and clearly the vehicle is the majority the same. But these manufacturers are starting to realize it's all supply and demand, and they're realizing that rather than selling a smaller, easier to afford vehicle, that they can sell something that's more popular, has more technology, and it's the same platform, but they can add thousands of dollars to the base sticker price, and the consumers are going to still eat it all up.
Chevy and GM literally just canceled this very popular model. I mean, look, all you see is vehicles like this, the Chevy Silverado Custom, big, beautiful truck. Here's another Trail Boss, and of course, this Silverado Custom here. We're also talking about the Yukons. These aren't cheap, and neither are any of the other Chevy pickup trucks. And the brother brand GMC, and they come up with vehicles like the Denali like this, 6.2 liter V8 of Fury, powerful, luxurious, but expensive. Other trucks like this as well, more Denalis, High Countries, Z71 Chevy, brand new. And this is a Silverado Crew LTZ 4-wheel drive. And it stickers at just over $80,000. Yes, $80,000 and change. That's pricey.
And the tragedies continue on, making affordable vehicles out of the reach for many buyers out there. In November, General Motors has announced that they were going to lay off almost 2,000 workers from the Fairfax assembly plant, which is exactly where they were manufacturing one of the most popular cars that they've been building for 60 years. That's the Chevy Malibu. Finally has been decided to kick down the road, and they're replacing it with a version of the Bolt EV. So unfortunately, with quality challenges, the aggressive action that GM's taking to transition to the electrified market, they're forcing themselves to become much more cost effective, much more aggressive, much more competitive, and in doing so, they've also lost one of their best-selling mid-size sedans ever known to Chevy history. It's a sad day. It's definitely worth flying the flag at half-mast for GM. And with all of that said, be sure to check out right there. You're going to want to check out those car news. If you missed it, you're going to want to see that as well. Don't forget to head on over to 6Speed Car Reviews. Amazing new reviews by an absolute passionate car reviewer. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.